Ooh, what's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Magic Dads podcast. My name is
Oh my
Rugley,
God.
joined here today by Pintyhet and special guest Ryan Brown, Rubber Duck Sauce in the house. What's
Oh
up,
my God, that's
dudes?
right. Yeah, you are
Howdy.
rubber duck sauce.
I am Rubber Duck Sauce. Uh,
Great
Thanks for
username.
appreciate it. Long time listener, first time caller.
Oh yeah.
Well, we're really glad that you're here today to talk about Naya Initiative. You've been
Oh,
playing this
yeah.
deck for over a year,
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
a little bit about Ryan Brown. Ryan Brown has top-aided more Lawnlander qualifiers than any other player.
Yeah.
All 6 of them, Ryan Brown is top-aided.
How many second places we got?
Two?
Two second places?
Two.
Yeah.
Yeah, made it to the finals twice.
Yep.
First one playing Teamer mid-range,
Yep.
Teamer
Yep.
tempo. And
Yeah,
then
you're on the recall spread.
The third
Yep.
one playing this deck.
Mm-hmm.
A permutation of this
You've
deck.
you've also spent a little time playing the 4-color Omniscitive deck that we talked about with Tanner, right?
Yes. Yep.
But for the last year, you have been a little over a year actually. You've been playing Naya Initiative, and most recently, you won the high stakes. You won yourself a Mox Ruby with this
I
deck.
want a Mox.
Where is
A
it?
Mox.
Show me.
It's at home.
Oh,
I'm
no.
traveling for work. I'm
Oh,
not
that's
taking
right.
it out of town while I go to work.
That's fair.
Rightly so. Okay, so Ryan, in your own words, can you please describe for me what is Naya Initiative?
Uh, I'd say mana acceleration, efficient removal, probably the most powerful threats in the format, and just enough disruption to get across the finish line. Um, on a pretty simple spread, triple mocks, and I no longer have to say just 9 points because they pointed fourth Aerolingus.
Finally. And not soon enough it was.
Yep.
And
And
that card's worth every point too. Like,
oh
it's-
yeah,
it's totally good. Everybody that has it in their deck now that we've talked to is like, yeah, it's a point. It's worth the point. Keep it in the deck.
yes, 100%.
Yeah, so all right, let me get your deck list pulled up on the screen for the viewers at home. There it is, they can see it now. We will start at the top. So you had said that you just get to play the best threats in the format, right?
Yep.
And I'm inclined to agree. One key talking point that I want to discuss is there is a lot of overlap in this deck with the Omniscitive, the 4-color deck.
Yeah.
So, and I know that you spent some time playing that deck. So, what was the tipping point? When did you decide that you would rather play this 3-color version than the 4-color version?
Blue sucks, right? Like that was it?
Absolutely
You were
not.
No.
Get this
You're
guy
like, wow,
out of
worst,
here.
worst color of Magic.
Get him
Not
out
gonna
of
play it
here.
anymore. Oh,
Absolutely
sorry.
not.
Blue's a great color. I just wanted the ability to snowball. Like, one of my biggest things for picking a deck is I want a deck that has some unbeatable draws. I want to have some draws that no matter what my opponent does, I'm going to beat them, and my deck just plays itself. I don't want to be grinding, getting like a card and a half to their 1 card advantage over and over and just slowly grinding them down. I want to be able to close the door and get a decisive victory. And nothing says that like Mox Ancient Tomb into either White Plume Adventurer, Archon of Emeria, or just some busted 3-drop on turn 1.
Yeah, that's one of the huge advantages
Yeah.
that this deck has is that not only do you just get to play a better mana base in general, or a mana base that's more resilient to like Blood Moon and Wasteland, but also you get to play the Ancient Tomb and the City of Traders and stuff.
Yeah, you don't. You're fine utilizing that colorless mana, even though you're a 3 mana, a 3-color deck, pretty heavily.
Yeah. Yep. I've tried to reduce the number of colored pips, but I mean, some of them are just so good you can't say no to them.
There's only so much you can do. The best hamster in the multiverse.
The best hamster in the multiverse,
Yeah.
and the best dog in the multiverse.
Yeah. And so you're playing, I think, without question, the three best planeswalkers in these colors, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure that, with the exception of probably Oko, these are just the three best
Mm.
planeswalkers in general. Oko probably slides in there a little bit ahead of Rin and Six, but yes. Moving right along into the creatures, you also get to play these mana dorks, which gives you those more consistent kind of critical mass, high roll draws, right? Where you're playing
Yep.
where you're curving one drop into three drop. Not only that, but you're also getting to play the Mother of Runes, the moms. You got Giver of Runes
Mm.
and Mother of
Yep.
Runes. So this deck, like as you can tell, is it's a lot lower to the ground than the four color version. You truly can get in there and get under some strategies, and also
Hmm.
you have those more consistent fast starts to go over the top.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, my two drops are good, but they aren't as good as three drops. Like
Yeah.
just having a three drop on turn two
It's
is
it's funny you say that. So looking at your deck, there are a total of over you have 21 one drops, and then 18 three drops, and then I think 12 two drops. So your curve is something of like a sine wave where it
yeah.
goes up, down, and then bottoms out. But you're like effectively you almost always want to skip two. You want to go turn one, some amount of dork, maybe a Moxen, maybe an ancient tomb on turn one or two, and then turn two, you want to start slamming three drops, right?
Unless I can play a turn one two drop with a Mox.
Yeah. I mean,
That's also
if
fine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
yep, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Moloch is a two mana card for a reason, right? Eating their mana dork for two mana is pretty good.
Oh, Moloch is one of my favorite creatures that's been printed recently.
Yeah,
That card is
that card
just
is nuts.
I could
Yeah.
sing the praises of Moloch all day. It is probably my biggest Green Sun Zenith target.
Yeah.
It's just good at every point of the game.
Yeah, playing
Yeah.
that card as a two drop, surprisingly effective.
Hmm.
Probably the most played mode of it is X0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two mana,
So
2/2 that eats 1/1.
moving into those powerful three drops, you get started right off with Adeline. We
Oh my God.
when we talked to Travis about Mono White, we spent a good amount of time talking about Adeline and also Hero of Bladehold. I don't think you're playing that, but the cards are very very similar. You are not playing Hero of Bladehold.
No.
No.
Yeah, Adeline just cards nuts.
Army in a can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Army
for
in a
sure.
can. It blocks attacks, just huge threat, carries a shadow spear like none other. Like,
Yes.
Also the big butt.
yeah.
The fourth toughness on the booty
Right.
is super relevant.
I think one of the weaknesses of these super powerful starts is like if this is all that you have, if you're just playing your turn two three drop and your opponent has removal for it, sometimes you have to pray that the top of your deck is very kind to you.
Yeah.
Adeline doesn't have that problem because a lot of removal spells don't kill her.
Yeah, just bounce right off. Like they immediately need Flame Slash or the game's sort of over. I feel like I've a lot of times banked a hand on like a Goblin Rabble Master or a Legion War Boss, which are very good. They're great three drops, generally easier to cast. But then your opponent has a shock or a two power creature, and you just suddenly can't attack in with your tutu, and you're like, well, they're going to trade with me every time. Adeline doesn't have that issue.
Mm,
Right.
She just slams in every turn.
yeah. You get to play all of these sort of like taxi three drops as well. You've got the Archon of Myria, you've got the Anointed Peacekeeper, the Boromir, you've got Elite Spellbinder, Rampaging Ferocidon,
Thalia's in there,
Thalia,
yeah.
Heretic
Yep.
Cathar. And these cards are cards that, if you play this on turn two, especially if you are on the play, a lot of decks just like either they have to answer it immediately or they're going to have to develop a new game plan. You can almost like, make your opponent mulligan with one of these cards. Excuse me, you can make your opponent mulligan with one of these cards.
Oh yeah, especially the uh, non-basic lands come into play tapped.
Yeah.
If somebody has a handful of fetch lands,
Mm-hmm.
it's just
Unkind.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
double
You
time walk
mean
sometimes.
person.
Double time walk is exactly what it
Yeah.
is.
With a body. Like the 3/2 first strike, attack into anything, kind of no fear. Put the shadow spear on it, like you said.
Yep, and
Um,
just some of these are powerful silver bullets against specifically things in our meta and other combo decks. Like that's what I feel separates this from Gruul monsters
sure.
and lets me fight
Yep.
things like Academy combo and Storm,
Yeah.
where the more red based Gruul or mono red decks trouble being able to limit them to one spell a turn, be
Yep.
able to prevent a Kiki Jiki combo with Rampaging Ferocidon or making their creatures come into play tapped, things of that nature. Anointed Peacekeeper taxing every activation
Mm-hmm.
of a card just gives you some game that other aggro decks don't get to have.
Yeah. No, I totally
Yeah.
agree with you.
I've heard the recommendation to splash into white with Gruul monsters because white just allows some of that additional versatility. And I think you're probably just correct to, instead of just splashing the white, why not put in the good white cards too? While you're like, put in all of the good white cards, remove sort of the mopier Gruul monsters cards, and be able to grind out a game.
Yeah, Gruul monsters. I mean,
It's good.
It's better in the mirror than this because I
Yes.
run taxing cards and they just run big creatures.
Mhm.
Yep.
But there's some cards that like you look at them in Gruul monsters and they don't look like a good card. They're just
I don't know what you're talking about.
Two
Flip of
twos.
4 is incredible.
Right, just almost vanilla 3/2s or 3/3s for 2. Like
Yes.
they don't look good. They will kill me, but they don't look like good cards.
Right.
Contextually good cards.
They're not flashy enough. You picked up a couple of 3-drops from Lost Caverns of Ixalan in Animpackle and
Oh, yeah.
Sentinel of the Nameless City.
Mm-hmm. And Broadside Bombardiers.
Oh, Broadside Bombardiers is also from Ixalan, isn't it? Yeah.
Card's not okay.
Broadside Bombardiers. Have we gotten to talk about this card on one
No.
of these? Okay, all right. It's settle in, lean back. Let's talk about Broadside Bombardiers. Ryan, I'll let you take the lead.
Yeah.
It's a meager 2/2 for 3 mana, but
That seems bad.
it seems bad, but every single part of the card just works together so well. Haste, great keyword. Menace, very tough to block.
Underrated.
Yeah, but then where it all comes together is the boast ability, where you can sacrifice another creature or artifact to have it deal damage equal to that mana value +2. So you can turn
a clue token into a shock.
Yeah,
a Llanowar Elves
token into a
bolt.
shock.
Yep.
Llanowar Elves into a bolt. Or the dream, of course, is evoking a Fury and throwing it at their face for 7.
You can do it at instant speed.
Yes.
It just requires that you attack first.
Boast is a weird activated ability. So once you have attacked with this creature, it has this ability for the rest of the turn.
Yeah.
Except you can only do it once, right?
Yeah.
Only once.
Yeah.
But the people forget that basically from the minute it is declared as an attacker, you can do it mid combat to muck their blocks.
Yep.
You can do it after blocks have been declared before damage. To eat their bad blocker because it has menace.
Yep.
You can do it before blockers so that they just don't have a blocker for this thing or any of your creatures. Or you can wait until post combat after it hits in and instant speed sack your Fury after you hook it.
Yep.
To what, 7 them?
7 them.
Checks my math. That's 9 damage in one turn if you connected with Broadside Bombardiers.
Yeah, Broadside Bombardiers is insane.
And just being able to get rid of their blockers just makes the menace so much better. Like seems fragile, but it's so hard to block.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to include.
Moving on to the 4 drops.
Yeah.
You've got 2 more initiative creatures in Caves of Chaos, or sorry, 3 more initiative creatures in Underbound Adventurer, Seasoned Dungeoneer, and Caves of Chaos Adventurer. So,
Yeah.
a lot of these Naya initiative decks lean further into the initiative. They're playing Blood Boil Sorcerer, um, and then you'd also said that you cut the Palace Jailer recently.
Yep, yep.
So what is the thought process behind like Blood Boil Sorcerer? The card's not great, but
No.
when you're playing an initiative deck, a lot of the times you just want to take the initiative as many times as possible, and so that's why they're playing the sub good initiative creature. So what is your thought process behind
Sub good.
Playing
You mean bad?
playing only the good initiative creatures?
I mean, first off, play the good cards. Second off, like every set they just come out with amazing card after amazing card, and like the list just gets more and more tuned as you
Yeah.
slowly find the cards that aren't performing and put in better cards.
Oh, I didn't see this one before. You've got a card from the Clue set in here.
I do.
Headliner Scarlet.
Not legal yet.
Not legal yet, but it's
as
fun.
As of time of recording, not legal.
It will be legal by the time people see this
Yeah.
podcast. Headliner Scarlet, 3 mana, 4 mana, 3/3 with haste. When she enters the battlefield, creatures target player controls can't block this turn. Okay, well she's already good
Yeah.
enough.
I
Yeah.
assume that you're going to choose your one opponent.
And then
I will choose my one opponent.
at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library face down. You can look at it and play that card this turn. This card seems nuts.
Yeah, very reminiscent of Lelia, but also just lets you Alpha Strike. Sure, it's a legendary that can be bounced by Caracas, but that just means that's another turn you don't get to block.
That means that you get to bounce it with Caracas.
Yeah, her trigger.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for the Caracas player, her trigger already happened.
What is? Oh, there's that Minotaur from, with, it's a 3/2 for 3 with haste. That when it attacks, you can, make it so it doesn't untap on your next turn, and then you can choose a creature to not be able to block.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I could see.
It reminds me of that.
I could definitely see playing this over Palace Jailer for sure. Palace Jailer is really really good. But this card just makes your opponent dead, which is kind of the theme of this deck.
Ending the game, inflicting your opponent with the dead status generally ends the game much quicker than getting the monarch status yourself.
Another interesting one, Halana and Elena partners. First strike, reach, again, 4 mana creature. At the beginning of on your turn, put X+1/+1 counters on another target creature you control where that's this card's power. And then that creature gets haste. So looking at this, it kind of seems like one of those cards that maybe is not so great, like you were talking about from Rule Monsters. Can you please tell me why this card is in your deck?
A, gives haste. B, it doesn't stay as a 2/3 a lot of the time.
Okay.
With things like Court of Garenbrig, Inti,
Yep.
Shadow Spear.
Yeah. You can respond
Luminarch
to the
Aspirant. A lot of different ways to put +1/+1 counters on it.
Sure.
And you can easily give something +4/+4 in haste, which is a good thing
really
to do
good.
every turn.
Yeah, it is a good thing to do every turn.
It
also
is
has
a vulnerable spell.
It also has
Or-
first strike and reach, which strikes me as very, very impressive when you're on the defensive.
Yeah. It's probably one of my more vulnerable creatures to Caracas, though.
Sure. It's just a second copy of Reckless Stormseeker in a lot of ways, though. Where, like, if you're just playing one spell a turn and that spell's a creature every turn, then that creature just has haste every turn. So every creature in your deck has haste. And also it pumps them. So, like, there's no downside to this card. Like, Caracas, sure, let's get that out of the way. But
Yeah, sometimes they're just going to have a Caracas.
Yeah. It basically means they're never holding on to the initiative. They're never holding on to the monarch if they get it. Because there's always going to be at least one additional attacker every turn that they're never accounting for.
And really helps to break through some of the board stalls.
Oh, yeah, sure. Good stuff. Moving on to the 5 drops.
Oh.
Fury and Solitude, of course. Those are 0
5
drops.
drops.
Those are 0
Yeah.
drops, actually. But once again, we're coming full circle again back to our conversation with Travis. You've got the Glory Beezy himself, Glory Banger, Glory Bringer.
Exert.
This card.
Banger.
So we talked briefly with Travis about how people will just dismiss cards that cost 4 or more mana as unplayable in Kalander because of the nature of the format. You got recall, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These cards are really, really good.
Yeah.
5 drops. Glory Bringer especially. Very, very powerful Magic card. I have won a lot of games with it. I'm sure you have too.
Oh yeah.
This thing comes down and it attacks for 4 and also kills one of your opponent's creatures. But the best part of it is if you have Ancient Tomb and Moxen and Mandorks in your deck, you're not playing this card as a... Whoa. You're not playing this card as a 5 drop. Oftentimes it's a 3 drop, right?
Exactly. Yep. You don't want to load your deck down with 5 drops.
But if you're going to play one, this is the one to play.
Yep. This is the one.
Oh, 100%.
I've tried quite a few others. This is the one that's stuck.
Cut all your other 5 drops, people. Just the On-Crop Crasher was the other card, by the way.
Hold on. Yes, On-Crop Crasher was that one you were thinking of. And then into the non-creature spells. So enchantments, real quick. You've got this Court of Garenbrig and this Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Now we all know what Fable of the Mirror Breaker does. We all know that this card is insane when you have initiative creatures in your deck.
Mm-hmm.
When you have things like Moloch in your deck and etc. But let's talk about Court of Garenbrig because I think in a recent episode of the podcast, and I could be wrong, it may have been a conversation we were having outside of the podcast. Jeremiah had said that he's very low on this card at the current moment, and I'm inclined to agree with his assessment of what it is. This card is very, very powerful when you play it exactly on turn 2. But outside of that, a lot of the times, when you draw it later in the game, it's not a great time to introduce the initiative. And also the Monarch. And also if you're behind, you never want to introduce the Monarch. Because things just get worse for you when your opponent gets to take it from you and bury you further in the ground. So, Ryan, please tell me that I'm wrong. Why is this card in your deck?
Is he wrong, Ryan?
It is a high risk, high reward card.
Okay, sure.
Times when it's bad, but if I'm behind on board,
a lot of your draws aren't going to be great anyway.
Right. So Court of Garenbrig, if I'm ahead on
Bad
board,
top deck.
it can snowball out of control. I have made multiple times had 9/9 Mother of Runes because of this card.
Perfect.
I've had
my God.
I have had Birds of Paradise that swing in there for
I've only,
double digits sometimes.
Yeah, I've only actually cast this card one time, but the one time that I cast it, it was on turn 2 off of a Birds of Paradise, and that bird ended the game on turn 5.
Thick bird.
It
got
real big.
Yeah, I also have a small +1/+1 counter sub theme.
Sure.
So being able to double the +1/+1 counters on a lot of other creatures, like that, there are definitely draws where this card is bad.
Halana and Elena seems good with that.
Yeah, exactly. But there are plenty of draws where this just ends the game and is something that sticks around through a Wrath of God, through a Fury, and just generates value and turns some of my not great creatures late game into actual threats.
Yeah, that's true. And like you had said, you are playing some of the best removal. You've got Swords, Path, Bolt, Prismatic Ending, and then you've got a few other ones in Chain Lightning and Forked Bolt.
Mm-hmm.
3 damage, 1 mana, pretty good.
Notably missing a Lightning Helix.
Costs 2 mana.
It does cost 2 mana. That's true.
Yeah. Well, how often are you playing a Prismatic Ending for X is 1?
I play Prismatic Ending for X is 0 all the time. when we were talking before we got down here to the deck view, what did you say about just the right amount of removal or something like that? I don't remember. How did you phrase that?
Yeah, just uh, just enough disruption to get across the finish line.
Yeah.
So slow your opponent down for a turn or two, just to let your creatures get in.
Yeah. So with very few removal spells, you kind of have to pick and choose what you're going to point those at. You certainly wouldn't want to, spend a removal spell really early on in the game on something that might seem insignificant when you're much later in the game. Obviously, if the game is going according to plan, you don't go very late.
Yeah.
But what are the kinds of things that you're really looking to kill with these paths and swords and bolts? I'm assuming you're not the kind of deck that's just going to point a bolt at a mana dork on turn one, right?
Pretty contextual, yeah.
Sure.
Sometimes you do, but like you'd rather get additional value out of killing the mana dork, like a Moloch or something that sticks around.
Of
But
course.
getting rid of one of their blockers or getting rid of something that is going to take the initiative from you so that they don't get to snowball the game in their favor.
Okay.
Or some high value targets, like if somebody plays a turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic and fetches up a Caldra Complete, you get rid of that thing.
You're going to want to get rid of that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you want to die.
So you really are using them as a disruptive element.
Usually, yeah.
Right on. That makes a lot of sense. Speaking of disruptive elements, you've got this Legolas's Quick Reflex.
Yeah,
which is not a card we've been able to talk about on the podcast yet. It's been out for quite some time, but this card has impressed me every time that I've seen it cast. I've had dreams about targeting a Merit Lage with it and then attacking with the Merit Lage. I haven't got to do that yet, but it is something that I want to accomplish.
What's it like to win more?
How's this card been going for you?
It's been good. It hasn't been one of the best cards in the deck, but it is a solid role player. Like it's very often a green 2-for-1, but sometimes it does sit in your hand for 3 turns or so while you find the perfect moment.
So having split second allows for that, though, for you to find it a lot easier.
It kind of like again, something that you see in a lot of these Naya initiative decks that you're not playing is Ephemerate. And so Legolas's Quick Reflexes kind of fills that role, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
In a similar but different way. You can use it to 2-for-1 your opponent. You can use it as a disruptive element. What advantage does Legolas's Quick Reflexes have that Ephemerate doesn't?
I mean, it's can be used a lot more aggressively. On the rebound of Ephemerate, that creature, if it doesn't have haste, can't attack that turn. I mean, split second is obviously...
I think split second is the big one.
Yeah. Big, and you can do some fun things with mana dorks that have +1/+1 counters or other tap abilities to be able to untap, block something, and then tap it for ability to kill something else off.
Oh, what creature does that?
Well, say you have anything that has a tap ability, Legolas's Quick Reflex, whenever it becomes tapped, it doesn't have to attack to get it.
Oh, so you can just tap your mana dork, your Deathrite Shaman to activate its ability.
Mother of Runes.
Something else. That's fun.
Undermountain Adventurer is a big boy that can tap to kill something.
I like that a lot, actually.
Pretty good, not bad.
Yeah, that is pretty good. And then kind of finishing off the non-land cards here, you've got a couple of tutors, Worldly Tutor and an Eladamri's Call. I'm a big fan of Eladamri's Call, especially when you have all of these silver bullet sort of things in here. How has this Worldly Tutor been?
There are some games where it's not the best, but they're like so mana efficient, especially in the combo matchups. Being able to find the one card that wins the matchup for you, being able to find Archon of Emeria, Rampaging Ferocidon, something like that, or just being able to go down a card to be able to cast a Fury and wipe half their board. Like,
Yeah.
there's enough good targets that make up for the card disadvantage, and it just being 1 mana, it makes it worth it.
Good stuff. Your your mana base is pretty much what I would expect. You've got some utility lands. You're actually not. Oh, you are playing City of Traders, so you have both
Yep.
of the soul lands. And you've got a Beseiju, you've got a Caracas, obviously.
Urza Saga on a 3 mana base. I think 3's as far as you can get in colors with an Urza
Are playing
Saga.
Urza Saga, yeah. I like Urza Saga in the 3-color mana bases. I think it's just fine. Ryan has very few double pipped cards that he's looking to play on turn 2. So as long as you have your one colored mana source, I think it's fine. You can definitely play a Urza Saga in a 3-color deck.
Given enough time, it can fix your mana.
Sure.
You don't want to
That's true.
wait that long, but
Right.
You can get a Moxen. Go for it, bud.
yeah.
Treat yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not playing a ton of colorless lands anyway. It's just that the 2 soul lands and the wasteland, right? I don't see any other colorless lands.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Let's bring this back up so that they can see our faces.
Hey, it's us again.
Not quite.
Almost.
There we are.
Okay.
We're back.
I was
So,
staring at the monitor the whole time, not at my iPad.
Yeah, well, we were here the whole time. I
Yeah.
promise.
Yeah.
Just the one. Well, okay. You've already got a Murders of Karlov banner card in there in the what was that card called?
The Headliner
Headliner
Scarlet.
Scarlet.
Yeah.
Headliner Scarlet. Are there any other Karlov cards you've been looking to try?
There's the Carnage Interpreter, also from the clue set. I don't think it's quite right in this deck because it's basically double red.
Yeah.
But I think that card is powerful enough to see play somewhere.
Yes, that was one of the cards that when I read it, I was immediately excited about it for Canadian Highlander. I think that card seems sweet.
Yeah, definitely rewards you for just dumping your hand.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just extra artifact synergies if you can use them with a welder, sack them to a broadside bombardiers or whatever you want to do with them.
I love Magical Christmas Land. Another thing that I thought of that I don't think you're playing is Aven Mind Sensor.
I had it in there for a little bit, but it's a 2/1 for 3 mana.
Definitely gotcha card.
So the effect is good. The creature that the effect is attached to is not. Is that what you're saying?
Right. And I'm a deck that wants to tap out as many turns as possible. So sitting there waiting for the right time to play it doesn't always work out for me.
Right.
Yeah, you're not a reprieve deck.
Right. Like
You're not holding up mana.
just going to be a lot of the times just shoving that card in there when it's convenient to cast it and not actually maximizing on its ability.
Right. And if they know about it and can play around it, it loses most of its effectiveness.
It's much less good when once it's there. That first one, the first search that you get with it is so good, but if you take that away, the card is pretty mid.
Yeah, the format's become extremely hostile to 1 toughness creatures.
Yeah, that was something that we spent quite a bit of time talking to Travis about as well. So, yeah, it surely has. All right, Ryan, anything else that you would like to say? Doesn't necessarily have to be about this deck. Anything at all?
I mean, everybody who watches this has probably played Canadian Highlander, but like this is my newfound passion in Magic. I will play other formats, but like this is where my heart lies. And like, get your friends to play it. If you don't make it to any of the Win a Duel tournaments, show up. We have a great group of people,
Hell
and we
yeah.
always have a fun time. So come play some Canadian Highlander.
Oh man, I love
Yes,
that. Thank you
please.
so much.
Come
Do you
hang out
wanna
with
do you
us.
want to come back and do that on every episode
Yeah.
of the podcast? Thanks for watching the Magic Dads podcast. You guys, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn notifications on so that we get to annoy you every time we upload a video. If you enjoyed this video and you want to check out more of our content, there's a link to our Patreon campaign down in the description of the video. You can go see what we're up to outside of this podcast over there. And with that, we just want to remind you that we're proud.
We're proud.
We're proud of you.
Bye.
Bye.